My father-in-law, and the fourth-generation owner of Italian Harris, Justin, has passed away.
Nancy, can I talk to you for a minute?
After the funeral had mostly concluded, Amy called out to me and led me to a secluded spot in the venue, away from everyone else.
Here, this is the will. Read it.
A bit perplexed, I opened the white envelope and found several sheets of paper inside, as expected.
Did you read it? So, here's the deal. That building belongs to us blood relatives. You can take the Harris name and 2 of the employees, but everything else stays behind.
In other words, what she was really saying was this.
The property goes to the blood relatives, so the store you've supported until now? You'll have to run it somewhere else.
That's what it meant.
Dad had this written properly, so you'll have to follow it. Oh, and you can have the sign too.
As I stood there, stunned by her words, Jason came over. Whether Amy noticed him or not, she finished with a cutting remark.
You were just here to take care of him. Thanks for expanding the store to a decent size.
Jason, without reproaching his sister, handed me another envelope. Inside was a divorce notice, already stamped. Her words were no lie. Whether it was from the start or somewhere along the way, abandoning me must have always been part of the plan.
Thanks for your hard work.
I was stunned by the thoroughness of it all. No more words were needed. Thank you for your hard work. It was a purely businesslike phrase, so devoid of emotion that it felt inappropriate even to say. Our second meeting was purely by chance.
Nancy?
I turned around at the sound of my name. No one at my workplace ever calls me Nancy, so I was curious, and I couldn't imagine who it might be. Standing there was Jason, a senior who had been in the same seminar group with me during university. Jason? It's been a long time. I couldn't remember when we had last met. What are you doing in a place like this?
Work. I had some business to take care of here.
It's been almost 10 years since I started working. Which also means it's been that long since I've eaten that pasta. Jason's family owns a long-standing Italian restaurant, and back in our student days, he often invited me there to eat. How's your family? Are they all doing well?
I guess they're fine. I haven't been home recently, so I'm not sure.
His vague response made me feel a little uneasy. Now that he mentioned it, what was he doing here? I had always assumed he was training to take over the family business, but it didn't seem that way anymore. Aren't you going to take over the restaurant?
Of course, that's the plan. But first, I wanted to get some experience working in a regular company. So, right now, I'm just a typical office worker.
As we continued talking, I began to feel nostalgic for the taste of that pasta. Jason, could I visit the restaurant again sometime? I've been craving that food.
Of course! I'll go with you, too! It's been a while since I've shown my face there, and who knows what they'll say if I don't.
And with that, we made a promise. Even after 10 years, the restaurant hadn't changed a bit. The grand, dignified signboard was still there. Inside, I saw the familiar faces of Justin, the silent and stern head chef, and Lauren, who always supported him. In the back of the restaurant, there were certificates and the framed proof of mastery that Justin had inherited from the previous generation. These, too, hadn't changed, which gave me a sense of comfort. I figured they wouldn't remember me, just one customer from long ago. But then, Lauren came up to me.
Nancy, it's been a while, hasn't it?
Her words made me incredibly happy. This is still as delicious as ever.
Haha, thanks! It makes me happy to hear that.
When are you planning to return to the restaurant?
Actually, I've been thinking that it might be soon. My dad's getting older, and I've been wanting to expand the business.
I'd like to help with the restaurant too.
What did you say?
If it's not too much trouble. I'd love to help out. I meant it from the bottom of my heart. Seeing Jason again after 10 years, the wonderful taste of that pasta, and the warm presence of Justin and Lauren, it all moved me deeply. I was serious, even if it was a momentary emotion, that I would give up everything for this. It also meant that I was willing to entrust my life to Jason.
Does that mean?
Yes. Please go out with me. He spoke passionately of his dreams. Once he took over the restaurant, he wanted even more people to taste that pasta. I was genuinely attracted to his determination, and eventually, we were happily married.
I heard this area is going to be redeveloped soon.
Really? Well, I guess it would be tough to do business around here.
I overheard the conversation between two customers at their table. It wasn't clear whether it was just a rumor or the truth, but the station was indeed far, and it was hard to say we had a steady stream of customers. In any case, shortly after getting married, as I had initially told Jason, I quit my job and began working as a helper at Italian Harris. Under the warm guidance of my father-in-law Justin, a noodle craftsman, and my mother-in-law Lauren, a professional accountant, I handled everything from customer service to accounting, kitchen tasks, and cleaning. I was able to do it all thanks to the incredible support of the senior staff. I learned the basics of customer service from Brown, who was a master at it, and from Miles, who handled everything from inventory to managing the website. I learned a lot. Italian Harris was built on the excellent teamwork of these four top-notch individuals. I thought my role for the time being would be to support them. However, shortly after I started working at the restaurant, Lauren's health took a turn for the worse.
I'm sorry, Nancy. I'd really like to teach you everything personally, but right now, that's going to be difficult.
Please don't apologize. I'll do my best to learn quickly.
Thank you. So, Jason, Amy, I'm not trying to force you, but could you both help out at the restaurant during this time?
A small family meeting was taking place. Amy, my sister-in-law, is a part-time worker. I'd seen her at the restaurant a few times, but from what I'd heard, she couldn't hold down any job for long and seemed to drift from one to another. That's probably why she hadn't worked at the restaurant. In response to her mother's request, she said,
I like my current job, so I can't help out right away. But don't worry about the future. I'll take care of the restaurant's management when the time comes.
Jason followed her lead.
I can't help out immediately either. But like Amy said, I'll come back to the restaurant someday.
Lauren took in their words, and after a pause, simply said,
I understand.
It sounded like she had never expected much from the beginning. There had probably been similar conversations in the past. I started to realize at this point, neither of them had any intention of helping out at the restaurant right now. Jason had passionately talked about the future of the restaurant on that day. Now was the perfect opportunity, but he didn't choose it. I hadn't fully made up my mind, but something didn't sit right with me, given the inconsistency between his words and actions. Anyway, it would be embarrassing to keep relying on them forever. I quickly became part of the well-coordinated team. Yet, the feeling of unease lingered. That night, I approached Jason to talk. Why didn't you offer to help? Isn't this a chance to grow the restaurant? Then, for the first time, he said something he had never mentioned before.
Honestly, I don't like how strict they are. I'm sure Amy feels the same. We're not the kind of people who put in that kind of effort.
It's true that he's loose with time, promises, and pretty much everything, so it's no surprise that he clashes with Justin's strict nature. However, it's easy to imagine that without Justin's discipline, the restaurant wouldn't have lasted this long. If Jason completely rejects that, expanding the restaurant isn't even a conversation worth having. So, when do you plan to get involved?
Probably when Dad retires.
Does he understand how late that would be? I tried to persuade him for about an hour, but I didn't feel like I made any progress. After working at Italian Harris's for a few months, I realized something. Justin is truly a quiet man who barely speaks. The only time I heard his voice was when he called out orders like tomato pasta or margarita. His constant silence made him seem perpetually grumpy, and I couldn't help but feel uneasy around him. But it was Brown and Miles who helped me through it.
Don't worry. The boss isn't mad. He rarely gets angry.
Honestly, I think he likes you. He's a lot scarier with me. He's much softer around you, Nancy.
They constantly reassured me. And when Lauren was feeling well, she would teach me how to manage the business step by step.
Nancy, you're picking things up fast.
I think it's thanks to my previous job. And, of course, Lauren has been so thorough in her guidance.
You say the sweetest things.
Thankfully, because I used to work in accounting, I easily picked up on the terms, and Lauren was a great teacher. I could really feel myself growing. But that environment didn't last long. Lauren's condition worsened, and Justin developed osteoarthritis in his right knee. At this rate, the restaurant's future was in jeopardy. So, Brown, Miles, and I decided to discuss the possibility of asking Jason and Amy to help again.
So, Jason, Amy, can you help us out? We need your support.
I'm asking, too. At this rate, the restaurant could go under any day now, and neither Brown nor I want that. I'm sure you don't either.
I get it, but it's still tough right now. I promise, I'll take over eventually.
Does he realize how much he needs to learn before then? Once again, he gave a vague excuse and dodged any commitment. And then, Amy dropped this bombshell.
I'm busy with work, so I'll leave Mom's care to you.
She essentially handed off the responsibility to me, leaving me to juggle the restaurant's management and my mother-in-law's care.
What are you talking about? I'm not saying you have to take care of your own mother, but you're seriously going to dump all of that on your sister-in-law?
I don't have a choice. I'm busy. And besides, Nancy's been around her longer. She can handle it, right?
Miles was too stunned to even respond.
You've got to be kidding me.
From past experience, we knew it was pointless to argue with the two of them any further. So, we focused on keeping the restaurant running as best we could. As for me, I didn't mind caring for my mother-in-law. I saw it as a chance to give back, even if only a little. But despite my efforts, Lauren passed away. I couldn't stop crying, wondering if I had repaid her enough for all she had done for me. After her death, Justin's physical and mental health took a nosedive. He struggled even to walk most days. It was no surprise, having lost his partner both in life and work. And so, I took over Lauren's role, managing the financial side of Italian Harris. Then, it seemed like Jason finally decided it was time to step up.
Dad can't move anymore. It's about time I get involved.
It was a much-needed offer. But when we opened the lid, it was nothing more than him hanging around the restaurant, shouting out unhelpful suggestions.
Maybe you should try doing this a little differently?
He was all talk, never lifting a finger. Soon, he started saying things like,
If I were the owner, I'd do it this way.
or,
Let's hire some young kids as part-timers.
he kept making outrageous suggestions without any intention of rolling up his sleeves to help. The atmosphere only worsened because he neither made noodles nor seemed to have any desire to keep the restaurant running. Before long, Amy started showing up more frequently too, and there was even a hint of mockery in the way she looked at the three of us, working desperately. I remembered something Jason had once told me. Amy had always hated studying or putting in effort, and she looked down on people who worked hard. That was exactly what was happening now. She only showed up when Justin wasn't around, when his condition prevented him from coming to the restaurant, which made it all the more insidious.
Nancy, don't worry about it. We'll do our best to keep things going. Just the three of us.
Yes, thank you. From that point on, the three of us began learning everything beyond our original roles. Brown handled odd jobs in the kitchen, Miles took over customer service and accounting, and I learned everything from how to make noodles to the proper techniques for preparing broth. Everything Justin could teach me. 9 years passed, and then the inevitable day arrived. Justin, the fourth-generation owner of Italian Harris's, passed away. Despite his struggle with arthritis in his later years, he continued making noodles, entrusting all his skills to me before passing peacefully from old age.
You took care of him for 9 years. Thank you for everything. It's no exaggeration to say that this place kept running because of you.
That's not true. I could only do it because of you two and Justin. Without you, I wouldn't have made it through those difficult times. Regular customers also attended the funeral, and while somber, it was filled with a warm atmosphere honoring Justin's achievements. But there was one person who spoiled that mood.
Nancy, can I talk to you?
After the funeral had mostly wrapped up, Amy called me aside to a secluded corner of the funeral hall.
Here, this is the will. Read it now.
Why the urgency? Puzzled, I opened the white envelope and found several pages of legal documents inside. After reading them, nothing seemed amiss.
Did you read it? So, as you can see, the land and building belong to us blood relatives. You can take the Harris name and the 2 employees, but everything else stays.
In other words, she was saying,
Since the property goes to us, you'll have to take your restaurant elsewhere, even though you've supported it all this time.
the handwriting was clearly Justin's. After nearly 10 years of seeing it, there was no mistaking it.
Dad wrote this properly, so you'll follow it. Oh, and I'll give you the signboard. It's old anyway.
As I stood there, stunned by her words, Jason appeared. Whether he knew what was happening or not, Amy finished with a dismissive remark.
You were just here for the caregiving. Thanks for keeping the restaurant afloat until now.
To her, I was nothing more than a convenient tool. Jason didn't scold her at all. Instead, he handed me another envelope. Inside was a divorce agreement, already stamped. Her words weren't lies. At some point, or maybe from the very beginning, discarding me had always been part of their plan.
It's over now. Thanks for your hard work.
I was only slightly surprised at how thorough their plan had been. Amy had coerced her sick father into writing the will, and as soon as I was no longer needed for their parents' care, Jason discarded me. They had prepared for this day. There was nothing left to say. Thank you for your hard work. It was a cold, professional response, devoid of any emotion. Barely appropriate for the situation. As I left the funeral hall, Brown and Miles were waiting for me. My senior colleagues who had truly shared in both the hardships and joys of these last 9 years.
What did she say?
She told me they're leaving us the name and the signboard. It's clearly stated in the will.
I see. It's been a long road, but first things first. Congratulations, Nancy.
Thank you. It was about 5 years ago that we officially learned the neighborhood where Italian Harris's was located would undergo redevelopment. The rumors we'd heard back then had turned out to be true. The centerpiece of the redevelopment was, of course, a massive new station building. No other structure in the area could compare. And the new Italian Harris's was set to open in the best spot within that building. I had learned this directly from Justin before he passed.
We're moving the restaurant.
What? Moving? Where?
To that new station building, or whatever they're calling it. Miles will handle the paperwork and all the complicated stuff. Your job is to focus on running Harris there.
Wait, Justin, what about you?
I'm old. Whether I'm alive or not when the time comes, I'll be stepping back. I'm leaving it all to you.
To me? What about Jason?
You know he and Amy don't care. It has to be you. That's why I've drilled pasta making into you all this time.
When I later told Brown, she revealed that she already knew. Apparently, the owner of the upcoming station building had been a regular customer at Harris and had personally invited us to open there. Naturally, Jason and Amy had no clue, which is why on that day, they thought they were cutting ties with the foolishly hardworking sister-in-law by showing me the will. But reality was different. That's why Justin had left me with only two things: the name Harris and the signboard. Though there was a tinge of sadness, the relaunch of Italian Harris's didn't require the land or the building. The new location's opening was a great success. Whether it was because we had announced the move on the website and at the old storefront, or simply because of the new station building's buzz, we had a steady stream of customers. At a prominent spot in the brand new restaurant, the signboard and my certificate of mastery were proudly displayed. I had finally become the 5th owner of Italian Harris's. However, there were some people who were not pleased with that. On the busy first day, the phone rang incessantly.
I need to talk to you.
I don't. I'm busy, so I'm hanging up.
Wait! We have a right to that space too, don't we? We're his actual children, after all.
I immediately knew this was going to be a hassle. Fortunately, I could already guess what he wanted, so I decided to nip it in the bud. Fine, I'll set up a meeting with the owner here and we'll talk things out with the three of us. Make sure you're satisfied with that. Goodbye. I had every legal right to be there, and I wasn't about to let that go to waste. A few days later, the 5 of us, Miles, Jason, Amy, the owner, and I, gathered for the meeting. Jason's argument was straightforward.
Since the restaurant originally belonged to our father, we should have the right to open a shop in the station building too.
What shocked me even more was Amy's claim.
They stole the Harris name and sign.
The sheer audacity left me embarrassed on their behalf, considering they were no longer family. In response, the owner remained calm and firm. After all, he was the one who had personally invited Harris to the new building and had a contract with Justin before he passed.
I, too, received a copy of the will, which clearly states that Nancy is the rightful successor of Harris. As per the contract terms for leasing this space, the tenant must meet 4 conditions: being a certified master, having run the business in practice, being able to replicate Justin's flavors, and holding the rights to the Harris name. Unfortunately, none of these apply to you.
After hearing this, Jason and Amy went silent, unable to continue their claims.
If there are no further objections, we'll end the meeting here. I appreciate your time, Harris, especially during such a busy period.
Sometime after that meeting, I began hearing rumors about the old restaurant.
What happened to the old Harris location?
It's turned into some strange new place.
It turns out Jason and Amy had rebranded and reopened the restaurant. However, due to the station building's success and other factors, their business quickly fell into trouble. Brown, who always seemed to be in the know, filled me in on the details.
Their business isn't doing well.
Is that so? Though I responded politely, I wasn't surprised at all. Jason had only ever been a company employee, so his knowledge of business management was close to zero. But the real disaster was Amy. Apparently, she believed that once she became the owner, she could dump all the work on the employees and make money without lifting a finger. That attitude backfired spectacularly. Keeping the Italian restaurant's original foundation, she constantly changed the concept, interior, and even the business strategy, racking up debt in the process. By the time she realized she wasn't fit to run a business and stepped down, all that was left was an enormous amount of debt. So, what happened to them now? I asked.
From what I hear, Amy's turned to alcohol and isn't herself anymore. Jason quit his corporate job and is trying to run the business himself to fix everything. But I don't see how that's going to work out.
Ah, there you two are.
Miles approached us, looking tired, and unusually began to vent a little.
The website's been attacked by trolls, and it's turning into a real hassle. Do you two have any idea who might be behind this?
If we're talking suspects, well, it's obvious.
Yeah, there's only one person it could be.
I figured. Yeah.
In the end, we didn't even need to launch a full investigation to figure out the culprit. Together with Miles and Brown, we went to the former Italian Harris's, and we caught the person in the act. Right in the middle of posting defamatory comments. What do you think you're doing?
The Real Harris is here! You stole the name and ran away!
What a ridiculous accusation. If you think you can ruin us with scandal, you're sorely mistaken. For the last 10 years, I've trained under Justin, learning how to make pasta. As a result, I was rightfully given the name and sign, and was even supported in opening a new restaurant. The ones who ran away are you two. You've been running all this time, and now you're facing the consequences. You know that, don't you? He said nothing. Also, I've already informed the owner about this. Whether it's defamation or obstruction of business, I'm not sure, but you will be sued. Prepare yourself. As I was casually scrolling through the internet, a headline caught my eye. It was written by the reporter who had visited the restaurant the other day, and, as expected, it was about the former Italian Harris's. In the end, their shop had to close, and no one knows what became of them afterward. Meanwhile, our rightful Italian Harris's continues to perform excellently, not just at the start but even now, with steady sales long after the opening. Not only have the numbers been good, but the quality has remained consistent. But we can't afford to rest on our laurels. As the location has changed, so too must we continue to evolve to meet the new demands of this environment. I have no intention of expanding the business, but I will keep striving to reach the highest levels I can, day by day. I swore that to the sign. How did you like today's story? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next video.